Hello, happy spring, and welcome to the next episode of Listrak's Innovation Unleashed. My name, for those of you that don't know, is Jake Pizzini, and I'm the VP of AI and Revenue here.
And I'm Allie Naughton. I'm a client strategy manager, and today we're going to go over a benchmark report that just dropped. It's full with a ton of interesting insights, and this is the first year we have specific insights for all of the different industries that we help clients with here every day.
Wow, that's awesome. I mean, that's a pretty big deal. In the words of a favorite band of mine, Panic at the Disco, we probably have some, I know everybody's probably got some high hopes for this one, right, to see what we got going. So we're also going to do these quarterly now. So moving forward, we'll always have industry-specific benchmarks, and we're going to start to surface those in the app as well, so that'll be real cool. But let's get started with it. Let's kick it off. Overall messaging volume. If you didn't know, retailers have really ramped up their game. Email volumes increased by 43% year over year, and SMS by a whopping 93%, almost double.
Yeah, it has been super interesting. So we're looking in the benchmark report at all of 2024 in comparison to 2023. So we're getting a lot of interesting insights and nuggets about how a lot of retailers have changed their strategies year over year. So I think the three main things that are contributing to that increase we're seeing in send volume across channel is really, one, in email world, more competition in the inbox, just plain and simple. People are sending more. But we also saw a lot of brands who, in general, are also reactivating consumers. So some of those dormant consumers who aren't necessarily the people they send to every day, but trying to re-engage them for an extra dollar or two. We saw a lot of that in 2024 as, in general, the marketing industry is becoming more expensive in other channels. People are diving back into that in the email channel, and then SMS just in general is becoming more mature. So we're seeing list growth up 20% in SMS, 5% in email. So that is also, like, that organic list growth is also playing a pretty big role in why we're seeing such big swings, I would say, in send volume year over year.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, if we talk about, so you were talking about the sleeping giants, right? Getting the existing customers who, need to reactivate and get them back up from the dead. So I would say there's probably three tiers of customers, right? The first tier is those repeat customers. For any gamers out there, that's really the S tier. That's the S tier class for you sports fans. Those are the GOATs, the greatest of all times. I mean, everybody loves the repeat customers. How can you get more out of your existing customers, yada, yada. Then you have the new customers, but you do have those ones that are old repeat customers, existing ones that are dormant or whatever, and it's like, man, if you can reactivate those, you can bring them back, and they're really like supercharged new customers. They come in, they know your brand, and they can get right back to those habits that they were before. So here are some stats on those customers that are getting reactivated, those former repeat customers. So their click-through rates, we have seen click-through rates decline by about 25%. And when you send out to people who are really old and you're not going to successfully, it's a difficult thing to be like a witch nowadays. Like if you're really going to necromancer, if you're really going to revive someone from the dead, that's not an easy thing.
No.
Right? So they do click a lot less. And that's actually a thing from a reporting side that brands will want to pay attention to. It's a great activity to go out there and decide, hey, I'm going to take these inactives and we're going to try to revive them, right?
Yeah.
But you then have to pay attention to that when you send out in mass and you have that offer there to incentivize them. You're still going to get a lower click-through rate. And then if you look holistically at your program, someone else might be like, whoa, what's going on here? But no, this was a specific audience that we went to target, right? But the SMS conversion rates there, actually, we're able to have an increase of 47%. So SMS is really gaining traction as a way to reactivate those customers. I mean, come on, like, maybe someone just doesn't check that email anymore or whatever, but that's, a testament to how personal SMS is. So if you can try to reactivate them there with an offer, that's really the perfect recipe.
Yeah, and I would say we'll definitely get into SMS because I feel like there's some interesting trends around shifting of really where the consumer is converting, to your point, around SMS. But I would say from a re-engagement perspective, that's a great point because retailers in general have different active audience segmentation. So not one client I've worked with has had the same exact filtering they do on email for who they're sending to on a daily basis or weekly basis or however frequently they're sending. So when you're talking about reactivating a base, if someone has, active filtering that is talking about things like opens, that person, if they're on an iOS device, might be opening. So when you think about like your active base will probably shift when you do more things such as re-engagement or reactivate campaigns because you're ultimately bringing more people in than you probably normally would be talking to. But given the channel and given kind of the return you see in email and in SMS, it's not a shock that that's where retailers and marketers are spending their next dollar, because they're getting so much more out of it than any other channel you would potentially put that dollar into too. I would say also just from an SMS perspective. So that's a big insight we got from the benchmarks report this year. So this channel, we're seeing such a shift. So when you think about email and SMS, they're really the same audience. So when you think about people who are subscribing to these channels, they're typically subscribing in a pop-up that asks for email or SMS.
Not me, Allie. I have different personalities in email and in SMS, just so you know.
But in general, it's people who have an account with you or have bought with you, and you have those different touch points. And we are seeing a pretty big shift. So to your point, in general, SMS, we saw conversion rates up about 47% year over year. That is across all of our SMS campaigns, across every vertical. And I think that has a lot to do with just like the shifting consumer mindset. So we're seeing that in a macro perspective of more traffic coming from mobile to sites. We noted that in our holiday insights that more people are converting on mobile. So when you think about like your mobile campaigns converting at like almost 50% increase year over year, it's not shocking because more people are just naturally more comfortable converting on phones. Younger generations are on their phones more, and they don't feel the need to shift to a desktop to convert, even if it's an expensive purchase. So we're just seeing that naturally in our channels too, where these two channels are really important to talk to people as they are the same consumer, but talking to them at the right point, at the right time, in that right channel, because email's pretty busy. A lot of emails are being sent, but from an SMS perspective, if you can get into their like mobile messaging app at the right time, you can really get them to convert and take that urgency super seriously.
Yeah, that's a great point. And actually then tailoring that in, one of the places looking through the results that we saw the best performance was around browse abandonment and post-purchase campaigns, these automated type campaigns.
Yeah.
And the point there is a lot of brands are using, this makes a lot of sense because brands are taking advantage of the AI within Listrak. And I got to take a deep breath here because there's a lot of things. It's called Listrak intelligence, but it's enabling brands to personalize every aspect of every message. So, of course, you can optimize the subject line. Cool, nice, golf clap. But then also the copy inside, dynamic images, dynamic content, AI product recommendations, AI channel affinity to do exactly what you said, so brands that are using us for email, SMS, web push, app push, will see which channel are they most predicted to purchase out of and engage in. So then instead of having it go out in email, it's going out in SMS.
Yep.
They're engaging with it. That's what's helping boost everyone's engagement rates. And by the way, the more people that engage in your messages, the more people that buy, right? So then that goes there. And then that even goes even further to the AI send time optimization so we're now picking literally the right channel to send it in with the personalized content in there and sending it to that selected channel at the right time according to when Allie is most likely to open it, which I don't know, could be 5:30 p.m. on an afternoon on her mobile device, but maybe it's like actually 5:30 p.m.'s not the time because your office is an hour away, so you're usually on the phone at 6:15, and that's when we would notice the engagement, and that's when the message would be going out.
Yeah, all of that really plays into how we're seeing retailers scale those triggered campaigns. So like great example is post-purchase and browse. So those are typically campaigns that you can be super, super generic. You can say, someone came to my site, send them this generic email. Or you can say, someone came to my site and left us on, the swimwear page. And we want to make sure that they're getting a pretty personalized experience, where not a lot of brands are doing that. And the more and more you lean into that personalization, the better click-through rate, the better revenue percent you get. And by the way, that can be cross-channel. So if they abandon on swimwear, you're sending them a personalized SMS message that's talking about swimwear. Things of that nature that really help you build on some of those strategies. And same with post-purchase. So like I'm seeing a lot more brands who are considering like their top 10 SKUs and doing specific threads for those SKUs. If it's products you need to learn how to take care of or how to use, or maybe if you're in like the appliance space, like what recipes you can use with them. So it's becoming much more tailored and personalized, I've been finding, especially over the last year, where people are really trying to squeeze as many dollars as you can out of that by really educating and bringing that consumer along for the journey.
Got it. Yeah, that's great. And now, can you enlighten a little bit. We did see, we've always known a heavy hitter, 3-hole hitter in the lineup, bringing in all the RBIs, scoring the big touchdown, whatever analogy you want. That price drop alerts have always worked. Like, hey, you were looking at this product yesterday, the price is down, get it now, strike while it's hot.
Yeah.
But so putting that in context, it's always been a good campaign.
Yeah.
However, this past year, revenue percent still went up close to another 10%.
Yeah.
So talk to me about what brands are doing with that, and how is that still, the hardest thing to do is have a great year. The hardest thing after that is to have a great year after a great year.
Yeah.
So how does revenue percent of price drop alerts continue to just raise the level every year?
Yeah, I would even go a step further where it was probably the only campaign we saw click-through rate increases on in email. A lot of email campaigns saw decreases because of talking to a little bit less relevant groups of people, or in general, just like differences in changing of e-com behavior. But price drop is one of those things, especially when the economy is in like a questionable state of what people are trying to drive that conversion, but really consumers are trying to stretch that dollar further. Price drop is a great use case of like people are window shopping more. So if you can show them when something drops in price, it's a great use case to be able to get them back to actually convert. So we're seeing a lot more brands do that, and it's becoming more efficient year over year. Things like back in stock are really inherent on having stock limitations actually in a lot of use cases. So those can change a lot. But things like price drop, if you have a pretty consistent sales strategy, are easy things to accomplish.
Very true, very true. So, you talked about how this was the first year that we're doing it at an industry level. So in the words of one of the hot artists coming up, Sabrina Carpenter, please, please, please tell me more about the industry level findings that you found.
Yes.
Don't you like how I'm hip and up on the times?
I do. You're referencing Sabrina Carpenter. Yeah, I would say there's so many industries that we have in the doc, so there's a lot of intricate detail, but we definitely have some high-level heavy hitters I would note. So we can kind of go in order, but the automotive space, I would say the most interesting thing we saw there, almost every vertical saw huge gains in broadcast send or marketing sends. And to your point earlier, we saw about a 25% decline in click-through rate across those campaigns because, again, people are sending either more frequently to the same people or engaging kind of dormant subscribers, and that's reducing overall click-through rate on the whole. But what we're seeing in automotive, very interestingly, the only industry that saw this was they saw an increase in click-through rate in those campaigns. So definitely when you think about consumer base and how people engage differently across different industries, that was a really interesting one that we saw almost like consistent across every other vertical but automotive.
Yeah, I mean, us Americans love our cars and customizing it to our likings.
Yeah.
But now, like, Microsoft Excel whiz, let me pivot over to beauty and fashion, right? So This is really cool. Let me look at this. For beauty, nearly all email and SMS campaigns saw revenue increases year over year.
Yeah.
I'll say that louder, and for those in the back, nearly every campaign type for the fashion and beauty brands using Listrak went up year over year. That's just incredible. Loyalty programs have been a major focus. 60x increase in sends and 2 times higher click-through rate than the overall benchmark.
Yeah.
It's just like, when someone gets into a fashion brand or a beauty brand, that is, it's like the 2 strongest magnets that could ever go together. You can't, inseparable, right? So maybe a Lilo and Stitch or whatever you think is inseparable. But talk a little bit more about those fashion campaigns that are really working this year.
Yeah, I would say to our like broader mobile trend, fashion specifically. So I'll note really quickly, beauty coming out of pandemic it imploded during the pandemic. Of everyone was essentially shopping beauty. You saw more beauty brands coming into market. So really from a capitalization perspective and triggers that we do really well in. So things like replenishment of, hey, you're going to need that skincare routine.
Can't ever run out.
That is performing really well, to your point. We're seeing revenue increases across the board. For fashion specifically, SMS is the channel that we're seeing really conversion rate increases across every campaign as well. So revenue we want to see growing across every campaign, but along with that, typically you'll see other KPIs decline. When you're sending more, your channel is growing, but conversion rate is growing in SMS across every single campaign that we're seeing for fashion. So this specific industry is really leaning heavily into that channel. People are converting better in that channel. And just in general, year over year, we're seeing that channel mature at a really rapid rate, where looking kind of across all of the other industries, we don't see that much consistency across every single campaign having a conversion rate increase.
Yeah, and that's where in that fashion and beauty kind of bleeds over then into big box retail. Some of that you can get there, some is just directly to consumer, but those big box retailers also saw the increases too. So you had mentioned earlier that the overall was, hey, people are sending about 45% more email year over year on the broadcast. The big box retailers actually were up 52%, over indexing, by close to 15 to 20% there. And that's where it's really advantageous for some of these brands, where we ingest all the store data and pull it in whatever way. Sometimes it's directly from the order systems, webhooks, API, a lot of different ways we get the data in. But when we have the in-store data plus the e-com data, that's where you get really robust audiences, and these brands are seeing the opportunity to find more pockets of consumers to give more personalized messages out and get that email cadence going, that SMS cadence going, because then at that point, that's not only getting more traffic to the site, but it's also getting more traffic in stores.
Yeah, and I would actually say a lot of our retailers who have stores, like, their number one goal is not e-com traffic. Mm-hmm. It's actually driving store traffic, which makes a ton of sense, given e-com typically makes up only 10% of, omni-channel businesses, so people who have, like, main store locations and then also have an e-com channel. So they want to focus on the channel and the, store where they're going to drive the most revenue. And so that is becoming even more critical for us at this time, because store traffic is up. So we want to continue to capitalize on bringing people from an email, an SMS into store, and then being able to tell that attribution story. So loyalty becomes a really big part of that, because you're able to tie someone who's buying in store to an email or a phone number, where we can ultimately say, hey, they just engaged with that shopping cart abandonment email. They clearly never had the intention to buy that online, but they were shopping and kind of window shopping online to go in store. So you get to really stitch these experiences that I don't think a lot of platforms allow you to do that. And it's definitely something that is like a differentiator on our front, because we can help brands achieve the driving more people in store and actually show it in the analytics.
Yeah, and an advantage to brands, those big box retailers partnering with Listrak is, now, they all usually have their own source of truth. I mean, the most common thing is most of those brands take all our data out, and then they're all putting it into their own thing, and that's all cool, have fun, slice, dice, go ahead. But still, on our side, we have an attribution system that will take all of the web data and engagement data of email and SMS and that, and then attribute it over to a store sale, right? So, and directionally, when, big box retailer says, I say, wow, I think, it looks like, the impact of these digital campaigns has improved your in-store performance by, probably 5-10% higher than I would have thought it would have been without it. And they're like, yeah, we're seeing something similar. Maybe I think it was 10% and they think it was 7.5%. But, true alignment and being able to see and have, and they get comfort in having our tool be able to provide a overview of that is pretty accurate to what they're seeing on their side as well.
Yeah, I just had like 2 meetings this past week with brands that could care less about their e-com revenue actually, and care only about like driving people to store. And there's a lot of interesting strategy just around like engagement. So retailers that have, I don't know, maybe more perishable goods or like grocery goods, it's a good use case that people typically come in like once a week. So when we're talking about using AI and affinity modeling to say, like, what's their most common shopping day, then you can really make really tailored campaigns to be like, hey, Allie typically shops on Thursday, and she didn't come in this week. It's Friday. How do we send her something to be like, hey, she's lapsed this week, and remind her she has to go get the groceries for the family, or she has to go pick up, X, Y, and Z for the weekend. And that's a great use case of being able to really stitch that across in-store and online.
And that's a key piece of it, that everyone's usual habits are different,
Yeah.
right? Someone, and Allie can literally be lapsed if she's like clockwork. Sun rises in the east, sets in the west. On Thursday, she goes to this place, coming home, and then it's Friday and you're not there. You have literally lapsed.
Yeah.
But then someone else might go once every few months or whatever, and then it could be 2-3 weeks, and no action needed, nothing outside the norm. So that's where that Listrak intelligence will pick up on that to enable brands to do those specific campaigns, and honestly execute them automatically, and not even need someone to pick it by hand.
Yeah, definitely.
So I feel like we could talk about this all day, but it is probably time to wrap. We really appreciate you guys listening and tuning in. We've been doing these benchmarks now we've been doing them for years, but now having them at the industry level and being able to commit them to you every quarter. So it's really going to be a bunch of insightful information, and we really, I don't want to say we terms, but I very much enjoy doing this. So, and I think I can speak for you too, that you enjoy it as well. So thank you very much from my side, and any closing thoughts on your end?
Yeah, I would just say we're going to be doing these quarterly. So the goal would be that we're going to be able to help brands, especially this year, which we know will be even more critical than ever, to really connect what we're seeing in the industry and a trending perspective quarter over quarter. So more to come, but thanks everyone for tuning in.
We'll be on a beach for the next one because it'll probably be in the summer, and we'll be excited to talk to you then.